Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another model video. Today is the final part to a painting and building resin kit tutorial on the YF-19 Macross Valkyrie from Macross Plus. It's the 1/144 scale kit from Hobby Workshop. You've noticed during the primary tutorial there was an aerial here and two fins that were meant to be glued here. The fins were so thin, being resin, they disintegrated and the aerial eventually snapped off. It's too thin for this sort of material, this brittle, this old. So we've just cut out of styrene plate parts the appropriate bits and we shall super glue it in place. Yeah, the parts applied, being a flexible styrene, they will not snap off again. Primer placed over the styrene and glue joints, no imperfections, no marks, it was done very neatly. We'll go straight into painting. We don't have much in the way of reference and it's mostly white, but we've got sharp edges of black, red and this marine blue colour. We'll be playing off that and utilising most of these colour effects through masking. We'll make this an extra challenge by utilising what paints we have available to us. Unfortunately today I've only got this tub that was used for other kits, but I see a few things that will work in multiple shade tones. Just like the primer, we've mounted everything back onto the skewers utilising lacquer thinner, generic, and Mr. Hobby Paint and an airbrush. We've coated the parts at the tips so we can achieve those straight lines. Once it all dries, we'll be able to apply masking tape. Here is a closer look. We sprayed at multiple angles to make sure that we've got even coverage for when we cover the parts up. These pieces are only one colour and will be glued into place at a later date. For handling as well as covering with tape, we're going to allow 24 hours to dry and harden as to not ruin the paint effect. For extra peace of mind, you can apply a gloss clear coat. After 24 hours of drying, the paint can be taped down. I'm using Tamiya low tack tape. Any other hobby brand of masking tape will work quite well. Using one strip in the middle of the panel line, I've folded the corner in half and stuck it in there. All the other tape will layer on top, which will make for an easy peeling back. A hint is not to touch the sticky part of the tape with your fingers, as it will promote bleeding of paint underneath the tape, ruining your effect. You can apply it on a cutting mat and chop it up with a very sharp hobby knife, pick it up and apply it to a surface. You're able to cut further shapes and apply it much like a mosaic puzzle. This is a very tedious and long process. It looks like it's mostly covered, but there's little gaps here, here and here. We're going to have to overlap to make sure that we get the effect as desired. Paint is going to go everywhere and it is going to dust on, changing the tone no matter what, so we need complete coverage. Pressing down with my finger, we have complete coverage. Very tedious process. Many small blocks will get the desired shape you want. You'll get faster as you do more, and after a few kits you'll be very quick and efficient at it, learn about underbleed and whatnot. Trial and error, but it's worth a skill developing. Utilising black as a base and a little bit of shading of German grey, we've only sprayed the appropriate areas not to waste paint or affect the undercoat. Underneath is black and the top is black with German grey. Next would be masking these areas off and painting the rest of the thruster section. We've done the same for the top of the Valkyrie, and we can see the lines that we want within the panels, which will be masked off. For the organic shaped objects such as the cockpit, the point near the aerial, I've applied Master Mask liquid latex masking. It applies on like a paint. You can neat up the panel line areas or edges with a toothpick or any other cleaning aid. It'll eventually dry hard. You put your layer of paint down, it peels off. It's probably the most superior method of masking besides something more harder like silly putty or blue tack. We've also painted the wingtips black, and they're being further masked with tape for a sharp, non-rounded edge, which is a lot harder to achieve with a liquid mask. The effect has taken quite a long time, but the natural places I would blot liquid mask on with a paintbrush, it would dry very thin and it would be very hard to penetrate the layer of paint to peel off. So what I've done is once it dries, I'll keep layering it on. So one, the line's going to be far more consistent and cut. Two, the masking is going to be so thick it's going to just pinch and peel. There's a lot of contours in the cockpit, so I'm hoping it'll come out as one latex piece like pulling a mould. With the masking, this was done by cutting very small pieces, layering it within the panels, and filling it in once we had the outline. With a sharp knife and trimming steadily, the same results can happen. I'm using an ultrasonic cutter, as demonstrated in the window above, and just slicing off the trim around and then reflecting where the edges are vac-formed among a light source. I've been able to trim this out very neatly. We marked off the areas for where we want the tape to line for the segmentation of the canopy. Completely masked and ready for spraying. We'll only do one pass as that's all that's required. We're painting these components white with the masking on, and we want a really bright white coming through. You can reprime it, base coat it, and put many layers. It builds up, and it's going to have a bit of a step from the mask to the undercoat. What I'm trying to do is apply a silver and then a thin coat of white over that. As light bounces, it's going to reflect the silver underneath instead of any other darker or muddy colour, spoiling the intensity of the white. All painted white. Now this is the sensitive bit. I'm not going to manhandle or remove the masking for a few days to allow full chemical hardening and not to leave anything as small as a dent, a bit of damage or a fingerprint on white paint. This is the hard bit. After the painting, I did not touch it, molest or anything for a long period of time. A few days will do it, but I haven't touched it in more than a week, maybe even two. Everything is completely dried, chemically hardened, and it's ready for touching. We'll be removing the masks now and touching up any errors that may occur with brush or further painting. Perfection is sometimes not achievable, but you can make the illusion of such. Whew, what a bit of a disaster. So we've got paint lifted up, which is not good, but we've got our crisp lines where we initially marked it out. If we fill in the spots, put a top coat and buff, it's going to look pretty good. So most of it's there. This is salvageable. Here are all the pieces uncovered from the mask, and you can see that the lines are pretty crisp. There was quite a bit of damage from the lifting, though hand painting has resolved it, and by a quick glance it's not a problem at all. You can see all the lines where they're meant to be, and did further hand painting in areas like the cockpit and the rondels. Utilising PVA glue, we're going to put a bit in the parts we're going to connect and glue components together. Glue applied to the two sides. It's very loose and the glue is quite wet. Now we're going to leave it sitting like this for a day or so and handle it to see if the bond is strong enough. I've got it on a bit of card. Now I can pick it up without interfering and put it away and not look at it for a while. Utilising a sludge wash with Tamir black accent colour, we covered everything in a 50-50 mix with enamel thinner and picked up all of the panel lines without any issues. Applied an acrylic clear coat, Tamir, which is resistant to lacquers and enamels. However, whatever wash you put on top if you're to put a solvent on top, it's not going to craze. Now, just as a warning, I've actually have paint crackle and craze with the incorrect use of enamel wash and top coats. Now, this little effect here has been done intentionally for a cool weathering effect, though this is going to have a barrier before I put matte, so it's perfectly clear. The canopy has also been clear coated and is looking pretty shiny and nice. A couple of coats of Gaia Note Premium Flat has been applied, and it's an absolute dead sheen, no issues whatsoever. Unfortunately, I did break the tail. We'll repair that with PVA glue and attach the canopy. Bit of the surplus there, applied it with a toothpick. You can see that the glue has cleared up quite a bit, and there is no longer a blemish or an issue with the broken fins. The model is pretty much finished in the way of detail, finish, sheen, top coat, all of that. I'm going to allow the full 24 hours before the tape is removed to prevent lift back. This concludes our long-winded tutorial on garage resin building model kits. In hindsight, this is a very old, slightly unusual kit in the scope of its sculpt, availability and subject matter. You won't necessarily find a lot of this, but you will find a full range of humanoid robots, assortment of robots, military subjects, cars, lots and lots of figures. The theory of cleaning it up, pinning it, adhesing it together and painting it, in theory, will be exactly the same. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content, and we'll catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for more, and next week we'll upload the full review of the kit.